Hello and welcome to Alex's Model Kits. This is just a quick video to talk about a kit I'm working on at the moment. This kit is going to be part of a group build. This group build is being run by a chap called Ian, who has a YouTube channel called UK Scale Modeler. The group build he's running at the moment is the Interwar Wings group build, which is, as you might guess, any aircraft that flew between the two world wars. So my choice of kit for this group build was, or is, this kit here. This is the 1/48 scale Hawker Fury, and there's a couple of reasons why I chose this kit. The first is that it's 1/48 scale, and a lot of the kits that I do are 72nd scale, and so it was just a nice choice to have something slightly larger. I also plan to rig this kit at the moment, if time allows, and I thought it would be easier to rig a kit that's larger than to rig a kit that's 72nd scale. The other reason I chose the kit was that it's an RAF kit in that interwar period where they had this really colourful colour schemes going on. Most of the aircraft were painted silver or had silver dope applied to the canvas, and then each squadron had its own unique set of colours which were then applied to the aircraft. So it was a very colourful period for the RAF's history, and I was quite interested in doing a kit that reflected that. So that's my choice of the kit. I started the kit, the group build started on the 1st of August and it ends on the 30th of November. So anyone who's interested in joining, I'm sure Ian would be more than happy to see you join in. I started probably the first week of August and immediately ran into problems, which was well, twofold really. The first problem I had was with the paints that I use. About a year ago I joined a Facebook group called Hairy Sticks Only, which is for model makers who don't use an airbrush but use instead the old-fashioned paintbrushes, which is very much where I am with my kits. And almost immediately when I joined that group, I started talking to a chap there called Conrad Savage, who I think is probably one of the admins there. And he was very friendly and very helpful, and pointed out something which I'd just never known, which was that the Humbrol kit paints that I use, these little tins of Humbrol paint, I've always painted straight from the tin onto the kit, and he pointed out that you get the better results if you thin the paint down first. Now I'm sure that for most people that's obvious, but somehow I've missed that, and so armed with that knowledge I decided I would, it might explain for a start why some of the kits I've done in the past have been so poor on the painting side. Typically for me, I then probably overthought it a little bit and took it to what to me is a logical conclusion, but I'm sure for other people would be complete madness. And I've decided that rather than take out dabs of paint and then thin that paint in a little palette and apply it, and run the risk of either using too much paint in that palette and having a lot of paint wasted, or using too little paint, so I have to stop halfway through and remix some more paint. It seemed to me that a more sensible alternative was to pre-thin my paint, to actually decant the tins of paint, decant the entire tin of paint into a glass jar, and then fill this tin up with some thinners, switch it around, make sure you get all the paint out of here, and then decant that into the jar as well, to end up with kind of a 50-50 mix of pre-thinned paint. what you're looking for out of interest, for anyone who's interested in thinning paints, what you want to try and achieve is that consistency of milk, which sounds like a really odd thing to say, but you do see it when you start to thin your paint and you slosh it around a little bit. It sloshes like milk. It doesn't have the surface tension of water. So if you're trying to thin your paints in the future, that's a good thing to aim at. Anyhow, so I've gone down this path of thinning a number of my paints. It's quite interesting actually. When you let them settle, you see all the pigment and the thinner separate out. Now there's lots of good things about doing this that I think are quite good. Obviously there are some significant disadvantages as well. The first is that storing that compared to storing that is a bit of a trial, but there we go. And the second is obviously you're costing yourself more up front because you're buying a jar. And I bought these jars from Hobbycraft. So you're buying a jar and you're buying more thinner because you're pre-mixing everything straight away. But I think over time, in the long run, this might be cheaper because I'm not wasting anything, in theory. Now that said, I've done about 20 of these paints pre-thinned, and I've had about 3 disasters, not disasters but failures, one of which was the paint I wanted to use. So this, with the Hawker Fury, because it's a mix of metal at the front and then traditional canvas with spacers and formers at the back, both of which are painted silver. No, that's not true actually. The canvas is painted in a silver dope to tighten it up and make it aerodynamic, or to get the aerodynamic qualities about it. The metal, on the other hand, is not painted at all. It's just bare metal. And in the interwar period, the metal was polished quite well. So I'm not looking for a mirror finish, but I'm looking for a fairly high sheen finish. So the plan was to use Humbrol's 191, which is a chrome silver, for the metal, and then Humbrol's 11, which is just a silver, for the canvas areas. Unfortunately, when I mixed my 191, it went off almost immediately. It just kind of, I think it had a chemical reaction, and it just completely and utterly turned into a sludge, jelly-like sludge, which has now since gone rock solid. And there's an issue with Humbrol at the moment where you can't always find the paints that you want with them, which is frustrating. They brought out a series of paints that you can polish to get a really high sheen, and they were around for 4 or 5 months, and then they vanished from the shelves, and I haven't seen them since. The same is also true of the 191 paint. It appeared for a while, and I got myself one, and then it's just, now I'm looking for another one. It's nowhere to be found. So getting a replacement paint was not going to be an easy solution. As it happened, I had a couple of alternative paints kicking about that I bought. I can't remember why I bought them. I bought them for a different project. So I had Vallejo's Silver, model colour silver, and I also had an interesting one called Vallejo's Liquid Silver. And I decided to experiment with both of these. I thought the silver, the Vallejo model colour silver, would be a safer bet for my Hawker Fury, and I was going to experiment with the liquid silver on a little £6 Airfix Mustang. I've had mixed results. The first thing I found out was that these paints don't like going directly onto plastic. With Humbrol's paints, I've always just gone from the tin to the plastic with no problem at all. Probably because it's enamel and therefore it's more forgiving of the surface. The Vallejo paints don't like that at all, and they did not do at all well on bare plastic. So I then took my Hawker Fury, after about 3 coats of Vallejo Silver and not getting anywhere. I then took my Fury and then dunked it in a jar of water for 2 days, and then scrubbed it with this toothbrush here, and that removed the old paint very well indeed, no problems at all. I then primed the kit and reapplied the silver to see how I was going to get how that went on, and it's gone on better. So this is we have, and I've only painted just the plate around the engine cover. It has got on better. From this angle, it looks okay, but you're not going to be able to see it easily. But when you look down the aircraft, it's very streaky. It's not an even cover at all, and this has had 4 coats, and I'm not happy with it. And I'm not particularly happy with it. Just doesn't look good. It doesn't look right in my view. So I think I'm going to give in with this. I'm not going to use it for this particular kit. On the other hand, I am quite pleased with this liquid silver on the Mustang. It is quite a temperamental. Actually, that's not fair. You have to be careful with it. You have to be patient with it because it dries out very quickly. So I mix a couple of drops with alcohol and apply it, and I have pretty much by the time I've applied it to one wing, what remains in the palette is drying out. So you have to be quite patient in just applying a little at a time and letting it dry. There is a concern with that paint though. The plan had always been to finish this Mustang and then to see what happened with it, because on the back it says synthetic resin and metallic pigment, permanent metallic colors for all surfaces, metallic, plastic, paper, wood, ceramics and plaster. Dilute with alcohol. Metal pigment will rust if in contact with water. Colors dry rapidly. Brushes are cleaned in alcohol. So I mix it with this isopropyl alcohol, which does a perfectly good job, but it obviously raises a concern. If the pigment is going to rust if mixed with water, will the pigment rust if left exposed to the damp of our atmosphere? Almost certainly, if I varnish that kit with an acrylic varnish, I would expect it to rust because an acrylic varnish is water-based. If I varnish it with an enamel varnish, am I sealing in an element of damp that will still cause it to rust underneath the varnish? I don't know. The plan had been, like I say, do the kit, put it on a shelf, watch it over 6 months to 12 months, see if it rusts, and then take it from there. But I think time is pushing on and I can't afford to wait, so I'm going to use this liquid silver with this Hawker Fury, and if it rusts, well, so be it. There we go. So that's that problem I'm hoping sorted out. The second problem I had was I have some missing parts for my kit. 3 parts are missing: the cockpit console and the 2 struts that support the tailplane at the back. And that's frustrating. If it had been 1 strut missing, I could have used the other strut as a guide and made a second one. But with them both missing, I've got no template to work from. So I need to look at a few photographs and just figure out how that works. I'm pretty sure I'm fairly sure I understand it, but I want to double check before I go down that path. So there we are. That's progress. Well, not much progress, but that is at least an update on what I've done so far. And I'll keep you informed as time goes by. All right, well, thank you for watching, and I will see you again. Thanks, then. Goodbye.